Welcome to MacStories Unwind, a weekly review of everything MacStories and more. I'm John Voorhees, and with me, of course, is Federico Viticci. Hey, Federico.
Hello, John. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. We had another big week at MacStories. It was maybe not quite as busy as the last couple, but you can only go at that pace for so long before you have to turn to other things, and those things right now happen to be OS reviews. So we're working on those while also keeping our eye on new apps coming out. So we had some reviews this week, some news, and a bunch of other stuff going on that we're going to cover on the show today.
Yeah. So why don't we start from a few app reviews that we've done this week as well, still catching up on all those iOS 14 and iPadOS 14 releases. And the first one I want to mention is a review by Ryan of a very small utility called Sticky Widgets. Now, this is very fun because it's all right there in the name. So Sticky Widgets, it lets you create stickies for your home screen. So if you remember stickies from the Mac and the ability to save those sticky notes on your desktop and your dashboard, well, this is sort of the same idea, but for iOS 14 widgets. So you can create these sticky notes. You can choose from multiple colors, multiple fonts. I believe there's marker felt is available here. So if you remember when it used to be like available as when you use the default font in Notes, marker felt, good times. Now you can use that for a sticky note that you can leave on your home screen. And you can just modify your notes by opening the Sticky Widgets app. You create your notes in there, and then you set their fonts, their colors, and then you save them on the home screen as widgets. And that's all that it does. So if for some reason you feel like you really need the visual reminder, the colorful reminder of stickies on your home screen, well, Sticky Widgets is the option for you, I guess. I'm not that type of person, but it seems to be resonating with people quite a lot. So
it really is. Yeah, it's not something that I probably am going to use either, but make sure you check out Ryan's review because he's got some great screenshots in there too. I mean, apparently he's using this app to remind himself to buy cookies, right?
Yes. Remember to buy cookies, which, if you're the type of person who forgets to buy the cookies, this is perfectly valid use case for stickies on the home screen. What a concept.
You do not want to forget the cookies. All right. So for the second review today, I wanted to mention another one that Ryan did, which was Deliveries. And, Deliveries by GeneCloud has been around for a very long time. I think I started using this app as a dashboard widget way back in the day on the Mac. And it's gone to subscription now. So it's $1 a month or $5 a year, which I think is a real fair price given how, especially during the pandemic, how often I use this app. I've got it open on one device or another pretty much every day of the week. And if you're an existing user, there's a deal too. So be sure to check that out. You get some time without having to pay the subscription depending on when you bought it, that sort of thing. But this update has just a grab bag, I guess, of a lot of little changes. Things like being able to drag plain text or an email directly into the app to let it extract the tracking numbers and things so that you don't have to type that stuff into the app in order to get a new delivery set up in the app. There's autocomplete of names for things that you buy frequently, so that if there's something you order regularly over and over again, there's less typing involved there. There's a syncing of manually sorted items. There's also parameter support for shortcuts, which gives you a lot more options as to what you can do with this app using automation and shortcuts. There's also, if you need records of the deliveries you've taken, maybe you run a small business and every month you need to export that information so you can share it with an accountant or a bookkeeper or something. You can do that now too. You can export all of those details so that you can keep them somewhere safe. It's also just got kind of a modernized UI in general too. So it's a nice update. It's not like revolutionary new features, but when you put it all together, it is really nice. And this is an app, probably one of the longest running apps that I've used on iOS. Bar none, really. And in fact, I used it before iOS even existed. So check it out, and I think you'll really like it. The other review that we have to cover today is one that I did, which is GoodLinks. And people may recall that I did a review of the 1.0 of this app back in June. So this app hasn't been out very long, but it's really become my go-to way to save links. It's kind of both, for me, both a read it later service and a way I just manage links, because sometimes links will be tagged for something that I want to put in Club MacStories, in one of our newsletters later in the week. Sometimes there are things that I tag. They're just things I want to read for fun over the weekend or whatever it happens to be. Plus, it's just got a lot of really good ways to get the links in and out of the app, including shortcut support. So it's a great app, but with this most recent update, it added some great iOS 14 features as well. First of all, there's a 3-column iPad design now. Now, this app already had a 3-column design on the iPad going into iOS 14, but now it's using that standard design. And, the difference in the look of the app isn't huge, but I think it's important that even apps that have their own 3-column design start migrating, like GoodLinks has, to the standard version of this, because it really makes it easier for users going across, going from one app to the other to know what to do and to have a consistent experience. It works really well that way. There are new keyboard shortcuts available in the app now too, which I really, really appreciate when I'm on my iPad. And then finally, there are, of course, widgets. And widgets are really nice here. You can create a widget that shows your unread or your starred items, for instance, or you can create a widget for any particular tag. So if there's a particular topic that you want, I created one for a tag I have called Weekly, which are the links that I'm saving and maybe going to include that Friday in the Club MacStories newsletter. And that way I can kind of swipe over to that on its own home screen with some other widgets and see what I've saved and see, do I have 2 or 3 links this week? Do I have like 10? And it's just kind of a way to judge how much I've got saved up. Do I have enough yet? And then tap into them and start reading if I want. So great update. It's an app that's become one of my favorites of 2020, and I'm looking forward to seeing what's coming next. Especially, I think probably next, I suspect, will be something on the Mac side.
Can we talk about those 99 links that you saved under the weekly tag, though?
I knew you were going to give me a hard time about the mess and good links.
What's the deal with those counters? You started hoarding links, haven't you?
I have. Those should all be deleted, because they, as of today, when we publish this, they have all been gone through and either put in a newsletter or not put in a newsletter, and they should be deleted, but I just haven't done that.
27 under Big Sur, 24 under music.
Yep. Music and games are the ones that I think I should that I want to get back to.
Under Nerve?
That's some hardware that I'm testing.
Oh, okay. Just a little teaser. Okay.
That's a little teaser. That's a teaser for something coming up later in the fall on MacStories.
And 38 under games. Man, you gotta get the video game reading.
I know.
Lay back and
busy.
enjoy some video game articles.
All right, Federico, instead of giving me a hard time about my links, why don't you tell us about the news? Because we got emoji news, and we know whenever there's emoji news, it's time for the Jeremys.
New emoji are available in the developer beta of iOS 14.2. This is part of the Emoji 13.0 update. The numbers are kind of confusing, but this is Emoji 13, the official name of the spec. And as you can imagine, on my other show Connected on Relay FM, we've done our usual game of the Jeremys, in which I try and guess the names of this new emoji. This is the 3rd year that we've done this before, that we're doing this game. And there are some definite highlights. I don't want to spoil the episode, but whether, I don't know if anyone is familiar with the idea. Well, no, I don't want to say it. There's a few particular moments in which the Unicode Consortium and the other people in charge of naming emoji, they didn't go for the obvious route, so I don't want to spoil the surprise.
No.
But there's some moments where I was really surprised. I also don't want to spoil how the game went in the end. But yeah, there's some fun new characters, from food to animals to clothes and accessories. So yeah, good collection of new emoji.
Yes.
Good collection.
I'd
of
almost
new emoji.
forgotten about the clothing and accessories part of that show. That was quite good, as was the food.
The musical instruments as well.
Right, all
so that was interesting. In other news, Pixelmator 2.6 is now available on iPhone and iPad. This is the basic version of Pixelmator, not Pixelmator Photo. This is the original graphics editor. And 2.6 is a really nice update in that it brings support for the system-wide pointer on iPad, as well as over 70 new keyboard shortcuts. So a really important update for iPad users. I don't know about you, John, but I still love using the basic Pixelmator of my iPad just to create basic images or to combine images like multiple screenshots together or to create really simple graphics like an iPad next to an iPhone. Pixelmator really is all I need. And I know that like more powerful options are available to me, like Photoshop and Affinity, for example. But the Pixelmator UI has always clicked for me in a way that those apps never have. And I think it's because Pixelmator, the way that I can best describe it, I guess, is imagine if the iWork suite by Apple also gained a graphics editor. Like it's got that native UI, those commonly understood interactions that are consistent with Apple's way of designing software. Right. They are familiar, like the way that you manage layers, the way that you pick colors. I don't know. This is like if Apple made a graphics editor, it will look like Pixelmator. And that's why I keep going back to this app, even though like Adobe has Photoshop on iPad now, but this one I just understand better.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with you. I mean, it's an app that I've used for a very long time, and it is because 90% of what I'm doing when it comes to this kind of image work is really just taking a couple of images and putting them together into one image, which is, screenshots, essentially. So it's perfect for that, but it's there are a lot of other uses for it as well. I kind of feel like maybe this app deserves a different name because it's a little confusing that there's Pixelmator and then Pixelmator Photo, and they both work with photos, but Pixelmator 2.6 is really more of an image compositing app like Photoshop in a sense than it is Pixelmator Photos, which is more of a photo editing app where you're doing things like applying filters and all that sort of thing. The last news story we had of the week, Federico, is that Maps has been updated in the UK and Ireland. And, this was first announced during WWDC, and it wasn't entirely clear how the update was going to roll out other than it would be in the fall. In the United States, which is obviously larger country, it rolled out in stages over the course of really 2 years, different regions, concentrating first on urban areas and then moving to the rest of the country. With the UK and Ireland, the new maps had been testing for a while over the last couple of months, I believe, but they officially launched a couple of days ago, and they applied to the entire country. So, Justin O'Byrne, who tracks all this on his website, we linked to him, and if you look he's got, of course, as he always does, charts showing kind of the landmass involved, the populations involved, as well as a bunch of GIFs that give you a before and after look at what the maps look like in places like London or Edinburgh or Dublin, as well as, more rural areas of the countries and other landmarks like, I think Stonehenge is in there and the Cliffs of Moher in Ireland, that sort of thing. I always find those write-ups fascinating. They're mostly image galleries, not a lot of text, as well as charts, but a great way to get a sense for what's changed in the UK and Ireland with the Maps app. So hopefully, on to Italy and other parts of Europe and the rest of the world soon.
Yeah, I'm not holding my breath for Italy, but we'll see.
I think I read somewhere that they're in Italy taking the pictures. Or maybe you told me that someone saw someone taking maps, right?
Yeah, that was like 2 years ago. So
okay.
Know. Maybe they got
a while
lost.
Ago.
Maybe they got lost in the middle of the Alps or something. I don't know.
Sure.
I don't know.
It happens. It happens all the time. It happens to the best of us, really.
It's true.
All right, Federico. So also on this week, we had the latest episode of App Stories where you and I went through our home screens. And, you've done some very elaborate things, especially with your first home screen, which I think people should really listen to that episode and consider doing some of the same, because really, really nice. It looks nice and it's really well organized, I think. And you've got some great widgets on there. We also talked about various strategies for how to lay out your widgets, how to combine them with icons, what we're doing with stacks, what we're doing with different sizes, all that sort of thing, which was a lot of fun. And I think at the end of the episode, we predicted that our home screens would be different before the week was out. And I can tell you that mine is a little different. And I think it would be more different if I had spent more time on it, but I've been busy and haven't really concentrated on it. But widgets continue to come out. I continue to have ideas about new ways to kind of consolidate things. I know that when we talked, I had too many app pages, and I want to get skinny that down to maybe 4 at most. So I've got some work to do. But if you want some ideas, that episode's a good place to start.
Yeah, and especially if you want to see the custom home screen that I put together.
Yes.
Really fun layout. So yeah, that was a fun episode to do. And it will be tweaked once again for the iOS review, but I'm not spoiling the surprise there, and there's a good reason for that. So
I think I know what that might be.
Yes. Stay tuned. Now, John, what's new in the club and MacStories Weekly this week?
All right. So we actually put out two newsletters this week. We did the monthly log in the middle of the week because it was the end of September. You wrote about what you're doing with music, right?
Yes. So what I wrote about what I'm doing with Soar, which is a third-party,
right?
Yeah, third-party Apple Music client, and my approach to magic mixes for Soar. Magic mixes are basically the indie developers' answer to smart playlists, which are still missing from music on iPhone and iPad. And so I described all the magic mixes that I put together, including a custom Genius mix based on multiple filtering conditions. So if you want to check that out and sort of see the rules that I'm using to assemble a Genius mix in Soar, go check out all the details in the September 2020 issue of the monthly log.
Yes, and in that same issue, I covered my first impressions of the Series 6 Apple Watch, and in particular the Nike edition, which is what I purchased. I've been really happy with it so far. There are a few things that I don't like, but for the most part, it's a nice incremental improvement from the Series 5. I won't spoil the rest of it, but look for that. And then Ryan covered his transition to a new task manager. He's been working in Todoist without telling us, I think, and really likes it. So that's a good issue to check out as well.
Yeah, how come when Ryan sneaks up on us with a surprise app, nobody gives him a hard time? But when I do, it's always like this big deal and discussion.
I know. Everybody looks at your icons and the whole internet freaks out at some point.
Everybody gets upset at me. It's not fair. I'm a victim of the internet.
You are a victim of the internet. I think you've got grievances, and we should we'll as soon as we're done recording, we'll go give Ryan a hard time. At least the two of us can can chip in and privately give him a hard time. All right. So the of course we also put out MacStories Weekly this week. We're continuing our giveaways. This week we had 10 different app giveaways that we kicked off. We also handed out the previous week's codes as well. I mean, there's a lot going on. We've got one more week of this. You can still jump in if you join Club MacStories now. In terms of the rest of the newsletter, I did a favorite, which was I covered Tempo, which is a running log app that I really like. I've been using it for quite a while now, especially over the summer, and it's a fantastic app. Ryan rounded up even more widget apps because we've just got so many of these. We rounded them up in a collection. We had SpendStack, Numerico, card pointers, and a whole bunch more. Then we interviewed the developer of Soar. Soar is an app that we've all enjoyed using quite a bit, especially I know Ryan and Federico have used it quite a bit. Yeah. And it's got great widgets. So we wanted to talk to Tanmay about the app, and so we have that interview in Weekly as well. And then we have a bunch of the usual stuff. Q&A. I had a tip about mail and Twitter. The Q&A actually this week covered the Hue Lights app, which is frustrating to use, to say the least. So I explained in there how you can kind of use scenes in that app and then bring them into the Home app and combine them with other HomeKit accessories to create more elaborate scenes, which is not super obvious, but it's doable. All right, Federico, let me tell you about our sponsor for this episode of Unwind and all of MacStories this week, which is UMaker. UMaker is an iPhone case manufacturer with stylish cases to protect your iPhone, and they've got a case for every single style and taste. There are three I want to tell you about today. One is the round edge model, which protects every surface of your iPhone with a comfortable rounded edge design that makes it really easy to grip when you're exercising. It's great for runners, in fact. There's another one called the Aegis, which has a beautiful dual-layer transparent design with a built-in screen protector and raised edges to make sure your camera stays protected as well. And then there's the MNS case, which I'm not sure what that stands for, but the MNS case features an innovative built-in kickstand that works either horizontally or vertically. It's a nice way if you're, just sitting down and maybe having lunch and you want to watch a YouTube video while you eat, or you want to prop up your phone to use as a camera and you don't have a tripod with you. It's another way you can use the case. Readers of MacStories can get 20% off the entire store, the entire UMaker store. There'll be a code in the show notes and a link as well. So be sure to check that out because that's only available for a very limited time. So go take a look at the cases and jump on some of these deals because it's 20% off right now. Our thanks to UMaker for their support of MacStories and Unwind. All right, Federico, it's Unwind time. And you have once again not put something in our notes, which means it's going to be a surprise for me. I think I know what it is, but lay it on me.
This is an old album because today, October 2nd, 2020, marks the 25th anniversary of the release of Oasis' best-selling album, What's the Story, Morning Glory.
Yes.
This is Oasis' second album, the follow-up to their debut album from 1994, Definitely Maybe. And I cannot believe this album is 25 years old already.
I know.
For context, this is the album that has the namesake song Morning Glory is on it, but also you may know this album from, I guess, three songs: Wonderwall, Don't Look Back in Anger, and Champagne Supernova. I think these are some of Oasis' most popular songs of all time. Now, this album, obviously, one of my all-time favorites, if not my all-time favorite. Like, literally every track on this album is one of my all-time songs of all time. Really, I just love this album so much. And eventually, I will get a line from the track number 1, Hello, tattooed on myself somewhere. It's on.
I love that song.
On my list of tattoos to get done eventually. What to say about this album? So, radical departure, sonically speaking, from their first one. Definitely maybe was a lot more indie and rough, sonically speaking. And Morning Glory is more sort of like these epic ballads with these huge like stadium choruses, something like Wonderwall, something like Champagne Supernova. Of course, it's no surprise that this album was like the centerpiece of Oasis' historic concert in front of 250,000 people at Knebworth. I hope that I'm pronouncing that right. It's like a huge park in the UK. It's a rock concert venue from 1996. So the following summer, they did this massive concert in the UK. And this album is just amazing. Like, all the songs are incredible. A lot more mainstream, you may say, a lot more like string arrangements compared to Definitely Maybe. This is a band growing up and sort of accepting that they are going to be a massive global success, which is exactly what What's the Story, Morning Glory allowed them to do. This is the album that brought Oasis from the UK all across the globe to America, and eventually they just became a massive international success. In the 90s, for context, Oasis were the most popular rock band in the world at some point. So this is also the album where the formation is changing. Drummer Alan White, which stayed with Oasis for, I guess, about 10 years, maybe, probably something less, replaced the original drummer, Tony McCurl, who was playing the drums on Definitely Maybe. There have been multiple, I guess. There was for the 20th anniversary 5 years ago, they did a reissue, like a sort of remastered version with a bunch of like demo tracks and live performances. I just love the original songs. I have the original CD from back in the day in my personal music collection, and yeah, this is an amazing album. Definitely, maybe, and this one are my two all-time favorites from Oasis, who is my favorite band ever. So I'm kind of cheating here because this is an easy pick for me. But this is just the, arguably, this is the high point of the whole Britpop, the so-called Britpop era from the 90s. So this album, going up against the, what's the name of the album from Blur at the same time? So a little fun fact for you. One of the singles from What's the Story Morning Glory, Roll With It, it came out in August, so a couple of months before the actual release of the album. It went up against, on the same day, came out the same day as sort of like, it was called the Battle of Britpop, against Country House from the Blur. Country House was from Parklife, if I'm not mistaken. The album, let me check real quick.
That was 1994, was Parklife. I just pulled up a list of all of Blur's albums.
I think that Country House was in Parklife. So this is the high point of the Battle of Britpop. What's the Story Morning Glory versus Parklife. There's a whole thing. I was too young to remember, but it's like I caught up after the fact with this all these things. Like I was in high school and I developed an interest in the history of Britpop and all these bands and all these albums. So yeah, anyway. What's the Story Morning Glory turns 25. I cannot believe that it's 25 already. Go listen to Oasis. They are an amazing band. Eventually they will do a reunion and I will be ready.
I sure hope so. It seems like they're always about to do a reunion.
Well,
but it's
Liam is a controversial figure, to say the least.
He's a good follow. He's a good follow on Twitter, by the way.
Go follow Liam Gallagher, the former singer of Oasis, on Twitter if you want to have a good time.
Yeah, he really. I mean, that account is just fantastic. He just loves stirring the pot, I guess. Mm-hmm. All right, I'm going to turn the clock back even further to 30 years ago with another Britpop album, a one-hit wonder, a self-titled album by The Laws. The Laws only ever put out this one album, but it's been influential for all the years since. I mean, there is a particular song in here that a lot of people are probably familiar with, which is There She Goes. There She Goes has been covered by a ton of different people, but it was originally a Laws song. And what really intrigued me was this week I came across this anniversary using my RSS feed reader and saw this that this anniversary was happening. And what's interesting about it is that there was only ever this one album, and that's because the lead singer of The Laws was an incredible perfectionist, and they burned through something like 5 or 6 producers making this album. Finally, it ended up being released. There was a Steve Lillywhite version that was produced and released by the record label with album art that was not approved by the band because everybody had just had it with them because it had been they had been producing it for months and months, if not years, spending a ton of money, redoing it over and over and over again, and it eventually came out. And it's been influential with a lot of other artists since then. But it's one of those cautionary tales, I guess, of pursuing perfection to a degree where the art just never gets made. The lead singer of The Laws, was kind of known as, he's a very eccentric character, known as the J.D. Salinger of the music industry, according to at least The Guardian, which I'll put some of the links to these articles about The Laws in the show notes. But it's an interesting backstory, an interesting album, a good album, one that's made a real difference in a lot of bands' careers in the years since. And there's even a really blurry David Letterman video you can watch on YouTube of them playing There She Goes in, I think, 1991 on the David Letterman show, which is kind of fun to watch. I like that song a lot. I listen to this album once in a while, It's not one of my favorite albums, but there are particular tracks on here that I like, and that is probably my favorite one. So it's worth listening to. It's also worth just kind of reading the story because I think it's an interesting story in music history. Okay, Federico, that's it for another edition of Unwind. I want to thank our sponsor again, and that is UMaker, the iPhone case manufacturer. You can find me and Federico over at MacStories.net. Federico is on Twitter and Instagram where he is at Viticci. That's VITICCI. And I'm at John Voorhees, JOHNVOORHWES. Talk to you next Friday, Federico.
Ciao, John.